Hey, friends! Just so you know, we enjoy the swear word and we rely on good old fashioned humor to get through some seriously dark subject matter. At no time do we intend any disrespect toward the victims or families of the victims in the cases we cover. Also, be sure to listen to the end for a few palate cleansing bloopers to reset your mindset. And with that, we thank you for listening and we hope you enjoy. Hey, friends! Welcome to Crime Will Tell. I'm Carrie.
And I'm Jamie.
In this episode, we're discussing the unsolved murder of Jazmine Trotter. It's a tough one. Jazmine left for work one Friday morning, and she never came home again. Here we are, almost 12 years later, and her case is unsolved despite the dogged persistence of the Cleveland homicide detectives assigned to her case. And honestly, that's just unacceptable. Someone definitely, in my opinion, knows something that can blow Jazmine's case wide open. And yet, no one has come forward. So, this episode might piss you off a bit.
Great.
Yeah. So, on that note, what are you sipping on tonight?
I am going to an oldie but a goodie and drinking some Four Roses small batch bourbon.
You are. I have like 2 fingers worth left of liquid in my Four Roses small batch bottle.
Nice.
And I almost grabbed that tonight and I just went right past it.
That would have been wild.
That would have been wild, wouldn't it have?
Yeah.
Would have to buy lottery tickets.
What are you drinking tonight?
I went right past my Four Roses and went right to Angel's Envy.
Another oldie but a goodie.
I am so boring. I really need to get to Grainworks. For those of you that are in the Appleton, Neenah, Menasha, Green Bay, if you're in the Fox Valley of Northeast Wisconsin, I implore you, if you haven't already, go to Grainworks.
Yes.
Grainworks is in Neenah. They're a bourbon shop and they're fucking fantastic.
Yes. I want to support the shit out of them. It's a very, very cool place.
So cheers, my friend.
Cheers to you. Clink, clink.
Now, a couple podcasts have covered Jazmine's case, and she also has a dedicated full-length episode on the series The First 48 that follows detectives Ignatius Soa, he goes by Nate, and Raymond Diaz, who goes by Ray. But even still, her case is not well known. And in my opinion, this is likely due to 2 main reasons. 1, Jazmine was a young Black woman who did not live in like a high-rise condo in the suburbs, if you catch what I'm putting down.
Yeah.
And around the same time as Jazmine's murder, several other women showed up murdered within the same 2-mile radius as to where Jazmine's body was found. So there was quite a buzz going on in that community in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And I think there was just a lot. And I think it was really hard to focus on any one victim when there were so many that were turning up dead. So Jazmine Trotter was 20. She was raising her son, this kid, the most cherub fucking face on this kid. He was so cute. He was 4 years old at the time of her death. So he was just a little button guy, but oh my God, I couldn't even with him. He's so cute. So she was raising her 4-year-old son. She had a full-time job and she was working really hard to keep her life on track. She lived with her mom, her boyfriend, and of course her son. It wasn't glamorous, this life that she had, but it was grounded and she was dedicated to giving her son a good life. She was hustling. She was working really hard, and we'll get into that. One point of clarification, though, that I want to make here for those of you that like to kind of look into the cases that we cover, or you want to look into the source material, many of the sources make it seem like Jazmine, her mom, her boyfriend, and her son all live together in the same house. And that's not actually what the situation was. Jazmine lived with her mom, but she also stayed at her boyfriend's house a lot. So the sources just kind of say she lived with her mom and her boyfriend, but they weren't all under the same roof. So
Gotcha.
just a
Okay.
point of clarification. I think she split her time between her mom's house and her boyfriend's house.
Okay.
We're going to rewind to the early morning hours of Friday, March 22nd, 2013. Jazmine left her boyfriend JoJo's home around 4:30 a.m. to begin the 2-mile walk to work. She didn't have a car. She didn't have a means to purchase and maintain a car, so she walked. She figured it out. At that hour, there probably wasn't public transport, or maybe there wasn't a route, but her option was to walk. And so she walked. And what she did was she usually walked the 2 miles to the temp agency that she worked at. And again, 4:30, she had to get there. Not the safest hour to walk alone as a
Right.
female in
Yeah.
general, but specifically her neighborhood that she lived in and that her boyfriend lived in, it wasn't the best neighborhood. So it especially wasn't safe to be alone walking at that hour. Oftentimes her boyfriend would walk with her and to
Aw.
keep her safe. But she would walk to this temp agency that she worked at in Cleveland. And then there she would catch a shuttle van to wherever her work assignment was. Her current one that she was working at a company that was located in Solon, Ohio. Then she would catch the shuttle van back to the temp agency and walk the 2 miles home after she was done working for the day if she couldn't catch a ride.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
she worked really hard. And
Yeah.
normally this was her routine. And again, Jojo would normally walk with her, but this morning she didn't wake him. She let him sleep. And so she just kind of slipped out the door. He was asleep, didn't probably even hear her leave. And then she never showed up for her shift.
Hmm.
And nobody realized that, though. They just assumed it was a Friday like any other Friday. And unfortunately, the temp agency, even though Jazmine called them that morning and to check in to say, I'm coming into work today, they probably had a lot of no call, no shows, or I call and then I don't show. And so to them, they didn't think to raise the alarm because it was common behavior that they had seen from people that worked for the temp agency.
Right. Yeah.
Right, wrong, or otherwise, it was what it was. By that evening, though, after Jazmine had failed to return home after work, calls to her phone were going straight to voicemail. Texts were going unanswered. Her mother, Monique Williams, recalled in a 2021 interview with the Reclaimed podcast that she wasn't immediately alarmed when nobody could get a hold of her on that Friday evening. Jazmine was an adult, but she did say, I had a gut feeling maybe something wasn't right.
Mm.
But Jazmine's an adult. So I
Yeah.
also knew the police are going to make me wait 24 hours before I can report anybody missing. So I just gave it another day.
Yeah. But that mother's intuition is something.
Right? Mama Bear
Oof.
coming out going, this isn't right. This
Yeah.
isn't
Something
right.
feels
But
off.
yep. By Saturday night, March 23rd, the whole family was worried. They still hadn't heard anything from Jazmine. She still hadn't shown up. Now it's been 24 hours. All calls, all texts were still going unanswered. This was highly unusual behavior for Jazmine. And so at this point, Monique asked her boyfriend, Jojo, to contact the police and file a missing persons report, which he did. And by Sunday, March 24th, now we're on day 2 of not knowing where the hell Jazmine is and not having heard from her, the family decided to search the neighborhood on foot. Monique, Jazmine's mom, Jazmine's nephew and cousin, along with some other family members, decided to retrace Jazmine's usual route. So they all went to JoJo's house and they walked block by block, starting from JoJo's, walking toward, taking the normal route that she would take to get to the temp agency. And block by block, were looking for anything that would give them a clue as to her whereabouts. They didn't really even know what they were looking for. I mean, think about it. Like a friend's
Right.
missing or a
Yeah.
family member's missing, and you're like, well, let's go look for her. Well, I don't know what the fuck to look for. They didn't
Yeah.
know, but they were just looking for something, anything,
Right. Yeah. Uh,
hoping and while also not hoping to find her. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
At East 93rd and Cannon Avenue, near a gas station in a row of abandoned homes, they found her purse in the backyard of a vacant house.
Mm,
They found her makeup bag also. And they found a comb that Monique had loaned her. Well, loaned is a Jazmine had asked Monique if she could use her comb, and Monique was like, no, girl, that's my comb. And then Jazmine took it
she
anyway.
took it.
So loaned is a far fetched word, but that's how they knew. She recognized the makeup bag, she recognized the purse, but that's how they knew for sure it was
yeah.
those were Jasmine's belongings. I bet this is when everyone started thinking, if her purse and makeup bag is here, what else might we find if we keep searching? Jasmine's nephew noticed a basement window. Let me set the scene here. Have you ever seen Hoarders?
Yes.
This house was straight out of an episode of Hoarders.
Oh,
So
gross.
the entire grounds and yard and property of this house looked just like a hoarder's house. And inside looked just like a hoarder's house. It was absolutely vile and disgusting and filthy.
Mm.
So there was a window cut into the foundation of the house that looked into the basement. And so if
Okay.
you think about, old homes, it's like cut into the sort of that like concrete brick or cinder
Yeah.
blocky type. There was no glass in this window. You could kind of just
Okay.
like look in. So the glass had long since been shattered out of it. And Jasmine's nephew noticed this window. He walked over to the window and he laid down at his belly to see if he could like see anything inside the basement. And that's when he discovered Jasmine's body.
Damn.
I'm just going to let that sink in.
It makes me so sad when it's a family member.
The family found her body. Now, this
Damn.
was no fault of the police. I just want to make that very clear because they had just the night before filed the missing persons report. The next day, they decided to do this search. The police were already like getting the case and starting their normal stuff. So it's not like the police weren't doing anything and the family was like, fuck, if they're not going to do anything, the family was just like, they loved Jazmine. They were very worried. They didn't want to just sit at home. Many of
Yeah,
us could probably find ourselves in that scene. Like if this were part of our lives, we would do the same thing.
for sure.
So he found her body. Jasmine's face and head were bloody. They could see that. They could see that she was partially disrobed with her jeans kind of down around her ankles. Not completely down, but like definitely down. It was obvious she had been viciously beaten, and it was clear she had been just discarded like trash. 20 years old, this girl was just minding her own fucking business walking to work, and someone decided that her life didn't matter. And this kind of shit blows my fucking mind. It's the part of humanity that I just don't think I'll ever wrap my mind around.
Yeah.
She was used, abused, and discarded. A little bit about Jazmine. Very little. There isn't much out there. She had an identical twin sister whose name was Yasmin. So where there was Jazmine and
Oh.
Yasmin. Isn't that great?
I
They
love
were
it.
born in May 1993 to their mom, Monique. They also have a brother with the cool ass name of Kwame.
Hmm.
So Jazmine wasn't just a victim in a true crime story. She was a daughter. She was a sister. She was a mom. She had friends. She had things she was looking forward to. She was making plans for the future. So many things that she hadn't been able to do yet and she'll never be able to do. Jazmine's family does a good job at keeping her memory and story alive. They've organized vigils. They've talked to the media. They've done more work on Jazmine's case over the past 12 years than most people do in a lifetime. But year after year, her case remains frozen. And meanwhile, other young Black women in Cleveland were disappearing or turning up dead in similar ways. And so you start to see a pattern, and it's not a good one. And it's the kind of pattern that screams, Systemic failure. Not on the part of like, I don't mean systemic failure in terms of like law enforcement or things like that. I mean, in terms of we have to stop the pattern of violence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know that sounds harsh, but it's fact. Cases involving young Black women tend to get less media attention, fewer investigative resources, and a lot more shoulder shrugs.
Yeah.
It's just, it's fact and it sucks. So, what do we actually know? We know that Jazmine left that house in the morning hours of March 22nd, 2013, around 4:30 a.m. We know her body was found the next day behind a busted up abandoned home, just a few blocks from where she started. She just literally, if you look at a map, she walked down the street, took a left hand turn, walked down the street, and that's where the house was where her body was found. She didn't get far when she set out that day to go to work. We know she was attacked brutally, and someone out there did that. Someone who has lived free for 12 years now, while loved ones grieve the death of this beautiful young woman, full of promise, full of potential, that this person decided to objectify, assault, and kill. Monique called 911 when they found her body, and you can hear the recording of her conversation with the 911 operator in the first 48 episode, and it is fucking heart-wrenching. Just a mom, I can't, but just finding your child brutalized and dead, and then having to make that phone call to 911, it's heart-wrenching. As I mentioned, Jazmine's body was found in the basement of an abandoned home at East 93rd and Cannon Avenue in Cleveland, Ohio. Blood stains were found on the ground outside the basement window, along the outside ledge of the window itself, and streaked down the interior cement wall of the basement. This is where some pretty cool detectives enter the scene. Detectives Soa and Diaz discovered a scarf on the ground, owned by Jazmine, in the same general area as that window, and it was soaked in blood. So based on all this evidence, they determined that Jazmine had been attacked and dragged from the street into the backyard of this house, beaten and assaulted, and then shoved through the basement window. I can't even imagine how Jazmine's family felt when they found her in those conditions.
It's horrifying.
Now,
it's fucking sad.
Soa has been with the Cleveland Homicide Unit for 12 years, or at the time of Jazmine's murder in 2013, he had been with the Cleveland Homicide Unit for 12 years, and Diaz had been on the force since God was a child, since 1994. Soa and Diaz had been partners for 6 years by 2013, and individually and together, they've investigated numerous crime scenes. So they're seasoned and they're committed, and these are exactly the type of investigators you want on the case.
Right, yeah.
Now, Dr. Armstrong with the Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner's Office conducted Jazmine's autopsy, and she officially ruled Jazmine's death as a homicide. And the cause of Jazmine's death was blunt force trauma, specifically to one side of her head and her face, as well as manual strangulation. Dr. Armstrong also determined that Jazmine had been brutally raped and then sexually assaulted with a wooden-type object. She was also able to recover foreign DNA from Jazmine's body. That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Soa and Diaz decided to head back to the crime scene, to that house, and see if they could find any other evidence, specifically the wooden object used on Jazmine. They were able to recover a tree branch that looked like it had blood on one end of it. Now, when I say a tree branch, what do you envision? Like a little guy that you pick up and you're like, oh, like a magic wand, like a Harry Potter wand?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, no. This tree branch looked like it was like a good 1.5 inches, maybe 2 in diameter.
Okay.
And maybe like 4 feet long. This thing was fucking big.
See, I would say a tree limb.
Yeah, yes.
If it's
you're
that
right.
big.
You're right. It was a solid limb that I reckon if you swung it at someone's head, you would knock them the fuck out.
Yeah, for sure.
Subsequent DNA testing came back, confirming Jazmine's blood on that tree limb.
Hmm.
My God, that's horrifying. For what reason would a man do that to a woman? Let's put the brutal abduction, rape, and beating aside. If you can do, let's just put those over here. What purpose does it serve to violate the most delicate part of a woman's body with a large tree limb? Like, is it like power? Is it control? Like, what is it's fucking perverse, is what it is. I don't get it.
I don't fucking know, but it's awful.
It's disgusting. Investigators interviewed Jazmine's mother, Monique, who recounted the events of the past 2 days leading up to finding Jazmine's body. They also called Jazmine's work, who told them that she never showed up for her scheduled shift. She did call and say, "Hey, I'm coming in," but she never showed up. And again, like I said earlier, that wasn't uncommon. And so they just kind of didn't really have an alarming reaction to that. Not that she wasn't reliable, because she was, but that just in general, typically the employees that they had, it wasn't uncommon for them to just not show up, even if they said they would. Soa interviewed Jazmine's boyfriend, Jojo, who had no idea what may have happened to her and had no idea who may have been responsible for her death. He did share that she had an ex boyfriend who went by the name Bobby, who seemed jealous that she was now dating him. So he's like, "I'm not saying that Bobby had anything to do with this, but I am saying that he doesn't seem to like the fact that we're dating. So I don't know if there's something there, but you're asking and I'm grasping. So maybe." So they looked up Bobby. His full name was Robert Berger. And while Bobby didn't have an arrest record, he was certainly a person of interest based on his past relationship with Jazmine. When Soa and Diaz interviewed him, he was calm, he was very forthcoming, and he was entirely cooperative. They didn't get any "I'm capable of murdering someone" vibes from him. They asked him if he was willing to submit to a DNA test, and he said absolutely, and he did right there on the spot.
Wow.
The DNA that Dr. Armstrong, the medical examiner, recovered from Jazmine's body did not match Bobby's DNA. So he was officially cleared as a suspect.
Okay. So Mr. Berger was, we could say, well done, medium well. I don't know.
Oh my God. That
Where
was
would you?
fucking. I mean, thank you for lightening the vibe here, because this one is really like, it just settles in my chest, and then like this uncomfortable feeling grows, because it's just, I just hate this so much. So thank you. Please
It's
keep it
just
up.
the lack of regard for human life is hard to grasp. And just that you could look at somebody and be like, it's just an object to me that I'm going to do whatever I want with, and not even pause to be like, this is someone's mother, daughter, sister, friend, coworker, and to just use them for your own purpose is just beyond anything I can comprehend. And so, yeah, it's heavy.
You
Very
said that
heavy.
really well. That's exactly like, I've said this before in other episodes. Like, do these people not realize that death is fucking permanent? Like, you cannot undo that.
Yeah.
Next, the investigators, Detective Soa and Diaz, they visited Jazmine's place of employment, that temp agency that I spoke of, and they spoke to her manager. And they learned that Jazmine was a good employee. And that stood out to them, because they oftentimes don't have reliable employees. And so, but she was a good employee. She was a good person. She didn't have issues with anyone. She got along with her coworkers. The manager loved her. She was doing the damn thing. It just is a testament to the amazing character that Jazmine had, but they didn't glean any additional information that gave them a possible lead. So it was kind of a dead end, unfortunately. So next, they turned their attention to whatever digital evidence they could gather. They really didn't believe that Jazmine's death was a crime of opportunity just based on the location. This was an area, like I said earlier, it was riddled with abandoned homes and businesses. It's not like people were just hanging out on the front stoop looking to start some shit. It wasn't that kind of area. Usually Jazmine notwithstanding, just walking through to get to work, if people were in the area, they were probably up to some nefarious shit, right?
Right. Yeah.
So they felt that maybe she had been targeted by someone that either knew her or had seen her enough times to figure out her routine because she walked the same route every day.
Yeah. I was wondering about that.
So, what they did, they being Soa and Diaz, they retraced Jasmine's steps. So, they went to JoJo's house and they started from there. And they retraced her steps to where, from JoJo's house to where her body was found in the basement of that vacant house. And they did this to look for any businesses along the way that were in business and actually operating. If whoever had security cameras that maybe were pointed in a direction that could pick something up. So
Yeah.
that's what they were looking for. Anything to shed light on what may have happened to her, or if maybe somebody like snatched her and maybe that was caught on camera. They found 3 businesses that had security camera footage along
Okay.
the route that she walked. The footage that they found had captured Jazmine walking past the abandoned house where her body had been found completely alone. So they saw this footage, and you can see her. It's still dark out, again, very early. And she's just walking, and she's walking past the house that she was eventually found and disappears out of frame. And they keep watching, they keep watching. There is no one. There's no one following her. There was no one that was caught on camera, like darting out. There was nobody was picked up on the security camera.
Hmm.
The prevailing theory was whoever killed her had to have already been in the area of that vacant house, but on the other side, because the direction that she was walking, there were cameras. But once she passed the abandoned house and kept going, the other side of that abandoned house, there were no operating businesses with security
Oh,
footage.
shit. Okay.
So what they were thinking was that maybe he was on the other side and bum rushed her then, and that's why the camera didn't pick her up. Or maybe it was down a little further and then he brought her back to that house. Either way, she definitely wasn't being followed because that would have
Okay.
been seen on the camera.
Right. Wow.
Now, this footage was helpful because Soa and Diaz were able to start putting together a validated timeline of Jazmine's movements up to when she disappeared off camera. She should have arrived at the temp agency to start her shift like around 5:30 a.m. or so, maybe around 5:15ish. The fact that she never arrived, and given the time that she left JoJo's house, they could narrow down her time of death pretty reliably. So it was in the early morning hours between 4:30 and like 5:30 a.m.
Okay.
Then Soa and Diaz got their hands on Jazmine's mobile phone records and were surprised to learn that after the time they believed Jazmine had been killed, her phone was still alive, meaning it was still powered on and had actually traveled all over town, pinging off of different towers, showing them the path the phone had traveled.
Oh, wow.
Even more surprising, Jazmine's phone pinged off the tower close to the place she was supposed to be working in Solon on 3
Really?
separate occasions over the course of 2 days after she had been murdered. The look on your face. You're like, what the fuck?
I'm like, I'm trying to think. I was like, was it on the shuttle bus?
No, she never made it to the temp agency unless her phone walked to the rest of the way to the.
Sometimes
No? Okay.
they do. It's a smartphone.
Anyway, this led Soa and Diaz to the theory that maybe Jazmine's killer was someone she worked with.
Mm.
Then the DNA results came back from the sample the medical examiner had recovered from her body during autopsy. And this is where 42-year-old Jerome Ogletree enters the story.
Ooh, okay. Who is fucking Jerome? I mean, not who's having sex with Jerome. Who is Jerome?
Jerome worked at the same Solon, Ohio location where Jazmine worked, so they knew each other. They were in each other's orbits.
Okay.
And it was Ogletree's DNA that was found on Jazmine's body.
Ah, okay.
And Soa and Diaz were like, boom, fucking boom.
Yeah.
Let's go get this guy and let's see what he has to say about his DNA being found on the body of a murdered young woman. Now, Ogletree wasn't a saint, but his criminal history was not violent. He was mostly wrapped up in the world of drugs and theft. In 1990, he was arrested for and pled guilty to drug trafficking. In 91, he pled guilty to drug abuse. In 93, he pled guilty to robbery, receiving a stolen vehicle, and grand theft of a vehicle. The next 6 years passed without any arrests after that. So from 94 to 99, he was clean as a whistle, allegedly.
Okay.
In 99, he popped his cherry again and pled guilty to possession of drugs.
Cool.
In March of 2002, he was arrested for and pled guilty to possession of drugs. And in a matter of weeks later, in May 2002, he was arrested for and pled guilty to drug trafficking and possessing of criminal tools. And I thought, well, isn't that a nifty charge? I looked it up. I was like, what is this possessing of criminal tools charge? According to Google Sphere, in the state of Ohio, being arrested for possessing criminal tools means that you were found in possession of an item intended for illegal use, such as a substance, device, instrument, or article with the purpose to use it criminally. So paraphernalia.
Right.
He had drugs and he had drug paraphernalia. Then another 4-year stretch of silence before he was arrested again and pled guilty to trafficking offenses in 2006. So he was a drug dealer.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
probably how he made his money. And that's where his rap sheet ends. That last guilty trafficking offense in 2006, his rap sheet ends then until April 2nd, 2013, when he was arrested for aggravated murder of Jazmine Trotter. He pled not guilty and his bond was set at 1 million big ones and he was jailed. He just went from kind of petty criminal to boom, killing people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so where's the twist? Something's gonna happen.
Do you sense a twist because she's still unsolved?
Yeah.
When Detective Soa and Diaz had Ogletree in an interrogation room before they arrested him, they asked him if he knew why they had him there. And he said he thought it was because of Jazmine, which made Soa and Diaz kind of perk up a little bit and yeah, you're right. Ogletree further said he suspects they might have his DNA from her and that's why he's being questioned. And they were like, well, you are a fucking smart cookie, aren't you?
Yeah, you should have said drugs, Jerome. What the fuck?
I feel like Soa and Diaz's eyes were probably bugging out of their head in that interview room when he was like, do you know why we have you here? Yeah, probably with Jazmine, right? Yeah, I'm guessing you probably have my DNA. And they're like, what the fuck?
That was fucking easy.
Yeah, bada bing, bada boom, we're done. But Ogletree wasn't done. You see, he tells them that he and Jazmine had a consensual sexual relationship and had had unprotected sex just a mere 2 days prior to her murder. But he didn't kill her. In fact, he had an alibi, Jamie.
Oh.
He was across town picking up a coworker to drive to Solon at the same time Jazmine had been killed.
Okay. That was nice.
The detectives were like, damn, is he lying? They didn't know. Their gut told him he might not be, but the evidence was certainly kind of loudly pointing at Ogletree at the moment.
Yeah.
Soa and Diaz were like, all right, you gave us an alibi. It's our job to confirm your alibi. And they were able to.
Okay. So he just was honest. He was just being upfront.
Upfront, Ogletree wasn't their guy. Ogletree was 100% fucking innocent. 100%.
Okay.
Both Jazmine and Ogletree's text messaging phone records validated Ogletree's story that they had a consensual sexual relationship. It was plain as day. All the evidence was there that, yup, they were bumping uglies. It was true that Jazmine was cheating on JoJo with Ogletree.
Don't love that. But okay.
Combined with tower pings off Ogletree's phone The morning of Jazmine's death showed him way across town, exactly where he said he was, and then showed that he had traveled to the work site in Solon.
Okay.
He was nowhere near Jazmine when she was murdered. So, Detectives Soa and Diaz did what good detectives do. They dropped all charges against Ogletree. They officially cleared him of any suspicion of being involved with Jazmine's death, and they let him go. This is what good cops do. They follow the evidence, even if it kills what seems like a viable lead. Talk
Yeah.
about circumstantial evidence. How that played out is proof positive how innocent people can go to jail.
Right. Exactly.
Like, because this could have unraveled in a very different way for Ogletree,
Oh, for
but it didn't.
sure. Thank goodness.
And just like that, the investigation was back at square one. No other leads have materialized since. The area where Jazmine was found, again, East 93rd and Cannon Avenue, is lined with abandoned houses, empty factories, overgrown lots, not exactly prime real estate for a sunrise stroll, but she had to get it done. She had to go to work. She had to provide for her son. But this is exactly why construction crews that had been contracted from out of town were working nearby at the time. They were fixing up the properties one by one as part of a revitalization push.
Okay.
So that's a theory that the detectives explored. Maybe a stranger, maybe someone staying temporarily, maybe someone who knew Jazmine walked that route daily because they kept seeing her. So maybe it really was a crime of opportunity. And we know that stranger on stranger crime is notoriously difficult to solve because there's no orbit to link. But so far, no arrests, no new suspects, just lingering questions. Here's what doesn't get lost on us. Soa and Diaz, they never stopped. They worked every angle. They dug through cell phone metadata. They rechecked DNA against new databases. They revisited interviews years later. These guys did not clock out on Jazmine. And that matters because even when you don't get the ending you want, even when the killer is walking free and it frustrates the fuck out of you, the effort, the care that they took with Jazmine says something.
Right.
Yet, her case remains unsolved, but not forgotten. So, Jazmine Trotter was more than her death. She was a 20-year-old woman who worked hard. She was raising a son. She made people laugh. People cared deeply for her. Her mother, Monique, still fights to keep her name alive. Her brother, Kwame, still speaks her name. Her twin sister, Yasmin, still mourns her loss. And here's the part that really gets me. Someone probably knows who did it.
Yeah.
They might have heard something, seen something, caught a weird vibe that day, but for whatever reason, fear, loyalty, maybe they don't give a damn, they've kept quiet. And I'm not here to pretend we're going to just solve this on a podcast, Mike. I'm not. But I am here to say her name, Jazmine Trotter, to remind people that this case is still open and someone out there still needs to be held accountable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you don't get to murder a 20-year-old woman on her way to work and then just disappear into the background.
Mm-mm.
You don't get to do that. Jazmine mattered. Her life mattered, and her story deserves more than a dusty folder. So, if you know anything about what happened to Jazmine Trotter, even the smallest, weirdest, most random detail, even if you think it might not matter, you can contact the Cleveland Division of Police or submit an anonymous tip through Crime Stoppers at 800-577-TIPS. That's 800-577-8477. There is a cash reward for any information leading to the arrest of the person responsible for murdering Jazmine. And you don't need to be a hero. You just need to speak up. Her family is waiting. Her son is growing up without her. And that shouldn't be the end of her story. Now, what I didn't go into is the other women that were found murdered within a 5-month period between December 2012 and May 2013. All of them found on or very near East 93rd Street, which is the area where Jazmine's body was found. 3 women in particular. On December 17th, 2012, 37-year-old Jamila Hassan was found stabbed to death in her home on Manor Ave in Cleveland. On March 28th, 2013, 45-year-old Christine Malone was found strangled in a vacant field on Bessemer Avenue in Cleveland. Her cause of death included cervical compression.
Ugh.
Fuck. And on May 28th, 2013, 21-year-old Ashley, I think it's Lezeski, was found with a puncture wound to her throat in a field on East 93rd Street.
Mm.
And while authorities said they can't rule out a serial killer, they also haven't been able to evidentiarily support that theory, meaning they haven't been able to find a thread of evidence that links all of these women, including Jazmine.
Right. Evidence and just manner of death, like something like an MO that would like clearly tie to one person.
Exactly.
Like they're all different locations, different manners of death.
Different ages. Well,
yeah.
Ashley was very young. Jazmine was the youngest at 20. These are still open cases. Police are still investigating all four murders, these three as well as Jazmine.
Damn.
The community still holds events and vigils each year to honor these young women whose lives were taken and to bring as much awareness to their deaths as possible, in the hopes that somebody somewhere knows something and will do the right thing and come forward. So that's our episode for today. I know it's a heavy one, but it's one that needed to be told. And if you're still here, thank you for sticking with it. Do us a favor, share this episode. Share Crime Will Tell. Someone out there might know something. And if nothing else, we keep Jazmine's name out there where it belongs.
Yeah, for sure.
And don't forget to check out our new website. And we have merch if you're interested.
Yes, we do.
I ordered a shirt and it came and it fits and it's glorious. So it's crimewilltellpod.com. Order a t-shirt. Order a rocks glass so you can listen to these episodes whilst imbibing in your favorite drink, even if it's soda. And with that, bye, Jamie.
Goodbye, Carrie. Whoa.
I know. I need to calm the fuck down.
Yeah.
Pour that thing down the hatch, you know what I'm saying?
It's my favorite pastime.
Get a hold of yourself, woman!
Congratulations, but how does this impact me?
Sorry about it.
That's me. Whoops.
Kind of like,
knock it the fuck off.
Maybe I should drink some more.
Awesome.